Let's dive right into this explainer and trace one of the most fascinating character arcs out there, the total transformation of a genius billionaire from a pretty arrogant profiteer into a literal self-sacrificing hero. Seriously, if you've ever wondered how someone completely overhauls their entire moral compass, this is the exact blueprint we're going to unpack today. Tony Stark's initial worldview is perfectly captured by this mindset. If World War II were to happen and they didn't have weapons, how would they help their people? When a reporter named Christine presses him about his massive arms deals, he doesn't even flinch. He just confidently argues that his weapons are this essential tool to protect people. At this stage in his life, he's just completely insulated from the actual devastating damage his creations are causing out in the world. But man, life comes at you fast. Just 36 hours later, his own weapons would be used against him. Right after demonstrating the incredibly devastating Jericho missile over in Afghanistan, his convoy is completely ambushed. And the brutal irony here, the very weapons bearing his own company's name, Stark Industries, are used to kill the soldiers protecting him, and a blast leaves him critically wounded. This is the deadly inciting incident that shatters his bubble forever. Chapter 1. The Weapons Manufacturer. To really grasp the sheer magnitude of Stark's journey, we've got to look at who he was before all this trauma. Stark Industries is this massive, highly profitable enterprise entirely focused on weapons manufacturing. Tony is dealing in arms with sheer destructive power, like that Jericho missile, and he's just living a life of total excess. He's undeniably a genius with immense wealth, but he is so detached from reality that he literally skips out on receiving the prestigious Apogee Award. He's off gambling at a casino while his father's old friend, Obadiah Stane, has to accept it for him. So it begs the ultimate question. How exactly does a weapons dealer become a peacekeeper? I mean, what specific combination of trauma and revelation forces a man to entirely abandon the massive empire he built from the ground up? That's the core mystery of his internal journey that we're digging into. Chapter 2. Captivity in the Cave. Everything Tony knows, his wealth, his comfort, his freedom, is violently stripped away in those mountains. He survives the initial blast, but there's literal shrapnel inching toward his heart. Luckily, a fellow captive named Yinsen rigs up an electromagnetic field using a basic car battery just to keep him alive. But Tony needs something sustainable. So together, they build this miraculous dual-purpose device, the Arc Reactor. It's an energy source that not only keeps the deadly shrapnel at bay, but holds absolutely incredible power potential. Now, the terrorists demand Tony build them a Jericho missile, but instead, he formulates this wild, desperate plan. First, he secretly extracts a special metal from the Stark Industries missiles his captors already have. Second, he builds that miniaturized Arc Reactor to sustain himself. And finally, step 3, he constructs a crude, heavy iron suit, the Mark I, also known as Mirai. Think about that. He literally has to use the very weapons he sold to orchestrate his own escape. But this escape, it came at a heartbreaking personal cost. Yinsen actually sacrifices his own life to buy Tony time to power the suit. As the terrorists close in, Yinsen bravely steps out to attack them, giving Tony those crucial seconds he desperately needs. Fueled by grief and rage, Tony uses his newly powered suit to completely destroy the weapons cache, take out his captors, and escape into the desolate desert. Chapter 3. Forging a New Path. Rescued by his friend James Rhodes, Tony finally returns home to California. But get this, he doesn't go to a hospital. He immediately calls a press conference. His old mandate was to build devastating weapons for the military and the highest bidders. But his new mandate, announced live to a completely stunned room of reporters, he is shutting down the weapons division immediately. Just like that. No more arms dealing. As you can imagine, this abrupt reversal absolutely terrifies his business partner Stane. With the entire direction of his company flipped upside down, Tony retreats to his home lab. And the evolution of his tech from here on out is just lightning fast. We're talking day 1 in a cave with the Mark I crude escape suit. By week 3, he's got the sleek silver Mk2 flight test suit. And by week 5, he's tirelessly refined it into an advanced, combat-ready suit. His obsessive internal drive for redemption perfectly mirrors his external inventions. 80,000. Keep that number in your head because it is crucial. During a test flight with the Mk2, Tony tells his AI, Jarvis, to push for maximum altitude. But right at 80,000 feet, he hits a massive wall. Ice begins forming rapidly, causing a critical system failure. He literally plummets toward the Earth, nearly dying before the ice melts and the suit restarts. This terrifying trial and error discovery, it's going to be absolutely vital later on. Chapter 4. Stane's ultimate betrayal. While Tony is busy trying to right his past wrongs, Obadiah Stane is operating completely in the shadows. When Tony finds out from the reporter Christine that Stark weapons are actively being used to attack civilians in Gumra Village, he angrily confronts Stane. But Stane's response? Just a cold, calculated, it's business. He feels zero moral responsibility for the lives being lost. And the rabbit hole of Stane's deception goes so much deeper. He directly sold weapons to those terrorists. He actually hired the 10 Rings organization to capture and kill Tony in the very beginning. Then he turns around and betrays those same terrorists to steal the remains of the Mark I suit design. Finally, when Tony's assistant Pepper Potts uncovers all this treason, Stane ambushes Tony in his own home, paralyzes him, and rips the Arc Reactor right out of his chest to power his own weaponized suit. Left for dead, his heart literally giving out, Tony manages to crawl down to his lab. And in an act of pure poetic justice, Tony survives using the old, weaker Arc Reactor that Pepper Potts had lovingly saved and gifted back to him. It's just enough juice to keep his heart beating so he can suit up for the final confrontation. Chapter 5. Becoming Iron Man. Tony flies straight to the Stark Industries lab to stop Stane, and wow, the odds do not look good. Stane's suit is massive, heavily armed, and packing immense raw power. Tony's suit, on the other hand, is smaller and running on that old, weak reactor. He is totally physically outmatched, but Tony has something Stane doesn't, his intellect, and that crucial high-altitude knowledge gained from his previous, near-fatal failures. Remember that 80,000-foot icing problem? Well, 91,000 is the number that changes everything. Realizing he can't win a fistfight, Tony intentionally lures Stane high into the sky. Stane is completely unaware of the freezing issue and chases him all the way up to 91,000 feet. At that fatal altitude, Stane's massive suit completely freezes over and he drops like a stone. Tony's earlier failure with the MK2 was the exact key to his victory. But of course, Stane actually survives the fall and the fight resumes right on the lab's roof. Tony realizes he's out of power and needs help, so he yells for Pepper Potts to overload the building's massive main arc reactor at full capacity. In this incredible display of teamwork, she triggers the overload. A massive blast of energy erupts upward, catching Stane squarely in the blast and defeating him once and for all. The dust settles, and the very next day, the government agency S.H.I.E.L.D. hands Tony a neat little cover story to read to the press to hide his involvement. But Tony Stark? He stands at the podium, thinks for a second, tosses the cue cards, and boldly declares to the world, "I am Iron Man." That right there is the ultimate completion of his hero's journey. He's publicly solidifying his brand new identity and taking total, absolute accountability for his new role. But I want to leave you hanging with this final thought. Later, S.H.I.E.L.D. director Nick Fury steps out of the shadows in Tony's home and drops a massive truth bomb. He says Tony's just become part of a bigger universe. He just doesn't know it yet. A weapons dealer transformed into a hero, now standing on the precipice of a much, much wider world. So what's next for Tony Stark? Let that question spark your curiosity as you reflect on this incredible evolution. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.